Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast. My name is Ian Said, but most people know me as Tacho. And today we have the pleasure to talk with Khalid Alrukaibi, better known as RKB. Considered as one of the pioneers in the Middle Eastern scene, RKB has been known as one of the key components for the scene in Kuwait and the FGC in the Middle East to grow. Such an important person in such an underrated region deserves its recognition worldwide. RKB, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me.
No, I think I'm grateful for you to being in this interview right now. Are you ready for? Or do you want to start this interview?
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Awesome. So I wanted to start this podcast talking about your beginnings. When was the first time you started playing FGC games? When was the first time you started playing Smash? And how long have you been in both the FGC community and the Smash community?
Okay, so this goes way back to playing video games in general, I guess, but being a 90s kid,
Mhm.
you had to work with what you had at the time. We didn't have YouTube, we didn't have the internet. So we didn't know about a lot of games, but thankfully, I was born in a place that had tons of video game coverage on magazines and stuff.
Mhm.
So I got hooked on different Nintendo consoles, and then other consoles like the Sega Genesis, going into the PlayStation and stuff. So I was mostly a console kid. I was never in the arcades. Even though we had arcades, I was too young to go to arcades at the time.
Of course.
I started fighting games with Street Fighter 2, just like most other people my age. Going into different other games like King of Fighters, Marvel vs. Capcom, and then eventually I played Smash on the magical console called the GameCube. It was my first game on the GameCube back into what was it, 2001. I had a Japanese melee disc. Was called Super Smash DX, I believe, in
Mhm.
Japan. And then eventually I transitioned into a North American console because Nintendo consoles didn't run different regions.
Mhm.
It had region locks.
Yeah, it
So
did.
I got hooked up on Melee and kept on playing and playing and playing. Competitively speaking, I started going to tournaments back in 2001 with King of Fighters.
Oh.
Back then we had a few tournaments in the arcades, and I was struggling because I used to play on game controllers. I didn't play on the arcade sticks,
Mhm.
so it was kind of hard. But I loved the competition. I loved the environment. I loved the energy, and then it just grew with me. My breakthrough was probably with Street Fighter 4. That's when the like esports started taking off, and
Yeah.
then we started seeing bigger events. Back then, we didn't have Twitch. It was called Justin TV.
Mhm.
And I used to watch people playing there all the time, and seeing people all over on the other side of the world playing games, having the same passion I had. I just wanted to recreate that in Kuwait. So I ended up uh, communicating with a few friends. We started hosting events in my place in 2012. I think it was. I think you know about the legendary Brawl finals,
Mhm.
which had like M2K versus Zero Suit. It was
Yeah,
just like super hype, right?
it was.
So yeah, that's when I wanted to get into Smash because before I used to be completely focused on Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Street Fighter 4 at the time.
Mhm.
But that triggered, my memories with Smash, and I wanted to get into Smash competitively.
Of
So I
course.
started hosting events in my place. I had like a small, in Kuwaiti culture, or like in Gulf culture, I should say, we have small places called Duwaniya, or like Majlis, which is like a room dedicated in households to have gatherings. Communities in the Gulf are 100% social.
Right.
Having a social life and connections with tons of people is like the norm here. So I just took advantage of that, started getting people to come to my place, and even though we started with a small number, thankfully a few years in we started reaching hundreds, and eventually we started expanding. Got to know a few TOs in other countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, and yeah, that's how it all began.
Wow, that's quite awesome to hear. Like this, like not only using the advantage of the social gatherings that were basically the norm, but the idea of having this clip, or at least this finals, bring that memory of you like from way back. Also, it's quite interesting the pronunciation different parts of the word melee. Because some people say melee, some people say melee, some people say melee. That's the worst one.
Yeah.
uh,
we just call it melee.
yeah, that makes
We
sense.
just call it melee. But I started calling it melee because I heard it all over the place.
Yeah. So going back to the interview, where does the tag come from? Like RKB.
It's literally my family name. So I'm called Khalid Alrukaibi.
All right.
Alrukaibi, which is RKB. That's literally it, nothing fancy.
All right.
Even some people mistake, the biggest event in Kuwait
Mhm.
was called KBR, which is Kuwait Battle Royale. A lot of people have been telling me that, oh, is your tag only the KBR, but like ordered differently? No, guys, it's just my family name.
Damn. That's
Yeah.
that's really sad if you think about it.
What can you do, dude? What can you do? Because, like, Arabian names aren't easily pronounced, so I
Mhm.
wanted to have something easy to say when I'm like on the mic or like speaking to anybody. So three letters is better than telling people just call me Khalid. Some people can't even pronounce the letter Kha.
Makes sense. Do you
Yeah.
remember your first fighting game tournament and your first Smash tournament?
My first fighting game tournament was back in 98. I didn't even know it was a tournament at the time. I was 8 years old. It was on a classical game called Rival Schools. We had a tournament in school. It's not a pun, I swear. It's called Rival Schools, and then we had a tournament in school.
All right.
I won that tournament, even though it was my first tournament. Nobody knew how to play the game. I knew how to mash supers, and then I got away with it. And then my first Smash tournament was the tournament I hosted. Oh
All
wait,
right.
no, my bad. It wasn't the
Oh.
tournament I hosted. My bad. It was a tournament my cousin hosted in their house
All right.
back in 2003. I also won that tournament.
Smash
Going
54
chic.
or
Yeah,
Melee? Oh,
in
chic.
melee.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So how long have you been a TO in the Kuwaiti scene? No.
I've been a TO since 2012. I
Mhm.
started in 2012.
All right.
Exactly. I dedicated my time in 2012, and then I've been a TO ever since.
All
But
right.
I've been helping TO in TOing events like way longer,
All
since
right.
like '05 or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
Um, Going to the Smash specifics, how was the transition from Brawl to Smash 4 and to Smash 4 to Ultimate, both as a perspective of a player as well as how was the impact of your scene?
It wasn't the easiest to be honest, because first of all, our way of thinking and culture, like fighting game culture, was different in general.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot. Anybody who lived during that era knows that there was a lot of tension between melee players and brawl players because
Yeah.
melee players didn't exactly respect brawl. So coming from fighting games, going into brawl, and always hearing the stigma of oh brawl isn't exactly competitive, I had a mindset of that like oh I shouldn't take brawl too seriously because A B C. But then when I met my dear friend Hamid Al Hurran, known as Dimna,
Mm-hmm.
he was our best brawl player at the time and was super active on Smash boards and all this brawl rip. He also was active like in a lot of circles with, and he knew a lot of top players actually back in the day. People like Nakat, Mr. R, among other players, right?
Hmm.
So when I met Dimna, it was the first time that I hosted in my place. My friend hooked me up with a Smashboards account, and then we met through Smashboards. And when he came over, we started talking about it and discussing how I should be viewing Brawl. And then we started playing, and then he started teaching me about stuff that I didn't even know that existed, stuff like Smash DI, or like using stuff like power shielding, ledge cancels and stuff. I didn't know that the game was so deep. It had so much tech into it. That's when I started, changing my view of like the game, and then I started to appreciate it, even though it was super neutral based. It had a slower pace than, like, let's say Melee or something like Marvel, right?
Yeah.
And then slowly, because me as a player before I became a TO, I always wanted to learn how to teach newcomers how to play fighting games, how to play
Yeah.
fighting games, how to start loving the aspect of playing competitively in fighting games, because it's really hard to teach a casual how to appreciate losing. A lot of
Hmm.
players only understand that winning is fun and losing is bad, when in reality it's not. Winning is stale. You win, that's fine. You could celebrate your wins, but when you lose, there's always a reason why you lost, and you want to learn why you lost. That's what I wanted to embrace. So, coming from being the best Marvel player in my region
Hmm.
into Smash, it kind of hit me that, oh, my skill set isn't exactly transitioning. I can't be the best in Smash because it's a different game that needs different tools, right?
Hmm.
So I started focusing on learning how to learn, and that's why Brawl has a special place in my heart. It's because it taught me that you should be humble. You should never, like, your pride. You should have pride, but like it should never hold you back.
Of course.
So during that period, there was also a mod of Brawl that was also like super active at the time.
I was gonna ask the
We started.
PM.
Yes, Project M.
Yeah.
We started hosting events for Project M, and that kind of clicked better with me because it was more aggressive, more combo based and stuff. And I kind of got hooked on it,
Hmm.
as a lot of people. But then I kind of shied away when they had, lots of updates that kind of were geared towards specific mindsets.
Hmm.
It made me think that maybe I like games that don't change too often. I like my game being set in stone.
All right.
When updates are done for a game, that's the game I want to explore. Whatever fact, or like something, whatever something new I learn about a game, I want to keep it. I don't want it to go away. Even if it's broken, even if it's like busted, I'm fine with it. This is my reality. This is the game I play. This is how I rolled, right? So transitioning from fighting games into Smash was really hard, and then transitioning from like Brawl into Project M was a good experience. And then comes out Smash 4, which was like the hypest thing in the world. I remember going crazy over Mega Man's trailer,
Hmm.
because I'm a huge Mega Man fan. Like, I
Oh.
grew up with the series, so seeing Mega Man finally, come into Smash, it was just magical. I knew that I had to give my all for this game. And then when Smash 4 came out, I was struck with the reality that, oh, this is a different game. This is not Project M anymore.
Hmm.
Stuff like, playing on two stocks and rage, dealing with, like, the specifics of Smash 4. It was hard, and I definitely got salty at times, but I definitely kept up with the game,
Hmm.
kept trying to push through, hosting events, hosting gatherings, meeting new people, just because I love the community.
Hmm.
Ever since I started hosting and dedicating my time to TOing, I fell in love with commentary and the process of learning the game with the community. Making new ties, meeting different people. That just became my passion,
Hmm.
more so than playing the game.
Wow. And wow, that's quite awesome. And how was the transition from? I believe that the transition from Smash 4 to Ultimate must have been easier because
Yeah,
the
it definitely was way easier, of course.
I mean, basically because the new system was easier to get, I believe, or maybe because the scene was more welcoming than Smash 4 or Brawl. So how was that transition?
Transitioning from Smash 4 to Ultimate wasn't hard because the game is mostly the same. It
Hmm.
functions the same. The difference was like a few things like, parrying and stuff. It wasn't a turn off for me personally, even though a lot of the old players kind of like shied away from the game because they didn't like the new mechanics. They had problems with the buffering and stuff.
Hmm.
Me personally, because I've played so many games, I don't find playing a new game and learning the process of learning a new game tilting or like something that would make me just hate the game altogether because going from something that's footsie based or like grounded based like Street Fighter into something like Marvel where like you're flying all over the place and hitboxes just reach full screen and stuff. It like to me it's just second nature.
Hmm.
So for when it comes to that it's fine, and when Ultimate rolled, the scene was already established, so we
Right.
didn't have trouble. Our first Smash 4 weekly had like 20 people in attendance or something. Our first Ultimate weekly had 100 plus.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yikes. That's that's quite a lot
Yeah.
in comparison, you
Yeah,
know?
it is. Especially since Kuwait is a small country. It's
Hmm.
not a big country, or like it's not something like even one state in the US is way bigger than Kuwait.
Hmm.
So having consistent numbers was fun, but then Corona struck and stuff, and
Hmm.
the Kuwaiti community didn't like online at all.
Right.
So numbers started dwindling, and when the honeymoon phase of a video game is over, a lot of people just stop at showing up at tournaments.
Of course.
But the scene is still active.
Yeah, I mean, I know because before I done this podcast, I checked the Kuwaiti scene if they had a Twitter account, and I've seen all the tournaments that Ferris was winning. Thank God, because it's my favorite player. Uh, but it's still quite awesome that even with coronavirus affecting every region in general, it's awesome that most of the regions have kept its tournaments in general.
Thankfully, because the social circles are tight in Kuwait, even if people stop showing up to tournaments, we still play together. We
Hmm.
still have gatherings, as friends and play all the time. So it didn't exactly, vanish. It's there, but like, it just needs, it just needed a spark to reignite it. And we have a new team that's kind of holding the fort while I was gone
Hmm.
for Smash, which is called UG Underground Gaming. They're right now they're the premier TOs for Smash and fighting games in general in Kuwait. They host weeklies and then they had regionals. They also helped a lot of players get sponsored. Ferris being one of them. He recently got sponsored by a team called Triforce, and a Zelda main being sponsored by Triforce. Wow, right? And he's supposed to be going to the Qatari tournament, which is supposed to happen in 11 days, I believe.
Yeah. Wow. That's. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too, me too. I can't wait to see Ferris show up on the big screen again.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
been a while.
It's been quite a few years.
Yeah.
Um, what characters have you made in Smash along the way? I know that you played Sheik
I
Melee, but what about PM Brawl, Smash Four?
Sheik was like my tournament character when things got serious. But I'm a really salty person. All right, I'm
Alright,
super competitive. I don't like losing at all.
alright,
I don't throw tantrums. When I lose, I just go completely silent. I'm just blaming myself. I
alright.
don't want to lose. So back in the day, I used to play Link, and then my cousin started beating me with Fox, and I was thinking to myself, why is Fox so cheap? I can't hit this dude. He's moving all over the screen. He starts camping with laser. I can't do anything. And then I found this character that can throw needles, and needles started playing the game for me. I started pairing them. They would go out of off stage, and then Sheik naturally taught me how to edge guard. The way Sheik's tools were created in Melee, the character kind of naturally taught you how to play, you know? So she was my tournament character, but not for long. I didn't play competitively or anything. It was just,
Right.
competition at the time. We
Yeah.
even used to play with items in tournament.
Okay. Yeah.
But like in Brawl, I played Wario. In Smash 4, I played Mewtwo.
Right.
Mewtwo is kind of like my spirit animal. Everybody knows that about me. I love I love the character as a Pokemon, or as a character as a whole. I
Yeah.
just love Mewtwo. And then in Ultimate, I've always wanted to play Peach because she's technical. She has lots of flashy combos, which feels like home,
Yeah.
coming from traditional fighters. Because in Marvel specifically, the game has a lot of long combos. It's basically cutscenes. So landing combos with Peach was fun. I started playing Peach, and then I stopped playing her after she got nerfed for a while.
Yeah.
Went back to Wario, and then started playing Aegis when they dropped, because I just said, why not?
And you have been playing Aegis ever since. That's that.
Yes, more or less. I play a lot of characters on a good level,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm mostly focusing on Aegis just because I genuinely believed that they were the best, and if I wanted to compete with my friends and and if I wanted to have the best shot, I would pick the best character in my opinion.
That makes sense. You play with Wario also in PM, or you play another character in PM?
Yes, in PM I also played Wario.
Okay, cool.
I
Um,
played Wario and Mewtwo in PM.
oh, cool. How were your thoughts about the transition from Smash 4 to Ultimate about Mewtwo?
At the start, at the beginning of the game, I was actually optimistic because they buffed his weight, which was a huge problem in Smash 4.
It was.
Back in Smash 4, he would die at like 60 or 50 to anything.
Yeah.
I even had a set with Nairo and what was it? He was at like one event or something, and then I played against him, and I was winning neutral. I actually won neutral on the first stock, and then he cheesed me with a down throw up air with zero suit.
Yeah.
I will never forget that. It was painful because I only wanted to take the first stock. I wouldn't mind losing. I just wanted to take the first stock, but Mewtwo failed me. Mewtwo died at 30. I will never forget this. So going into Ultimate, I was optimistic, but slowly but surely I understood that the character couldn't compete at the highest level, simply because of the hurt box, the tail, and then the nerfs to some of his essential moves, in my opinion, which was jab. He had jab to grab, which doesn't work anymore because jabs function in a weird way in Ultimate. I don't like jabs in Smash Ultimate, by the way. It's either broken in Croy, or like pathetically weak or useless with like the rest of the cast. It's just a jab. It doesn't do anything. So
Unless
losing
they,
jab.
I mean, unless they
uh,
have jab blocks, but yeah, that makes sense.
Even jab blocks sometimes are weird. Byleth has
Yeah.
a super high jab that they can't functionally jab block. They can't. A lot of times, you could see MK Leo, near somebody, and they wouldn't tech. He would run at them, try to jab block, and the jab wouldn't even hit. It's super high.
Yeah.
It's just bad. It's just bad. So, jab was one thing. You had the nerfs to up throw and up smash. They wouldn't kill as early, even with rage. And then you had down tilt, which has a sour hitbox now that doesn't combo. Um, Mewtwo had a lot of problems. Even though they buffed him,
Yeah.
it's the buffs were still not enough. I genuinely think that Mewtwo can't be played you can't play solo Mewtwo at the highest level, or
No.
even like heck, even at like a high level or like a mid level.
No, I
It's
don't
it's
think so.
hard. It's really hard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It quite is. I Now that I think about it, I don't know if I interviewed a Mewtwo player from Ultimate.
Yeah,
That it is
Mewtwo.
quite rare.
As a Mewtwo enthusiast, I can genuinely say that Mewtwo sucks. Sadly, it's just the reality.
I
Yeah,
mean,
the character can do stuff, but like if you run into a Palu or like a Rob or a wolf, heck, even a snake, you would end up fighting the engine more so than the player because
mm,
they would land the most dumb stuff on you just because your character is so big for no reason. Having a big character with like low weight is not a good combination. Never
mm.
is.
I mean, honestly, one of the players here is called Paco. Shout out to Paco. He plays with Ridley, and he tried to play Mewtwo as well in the online era, and he was like, "I just rather play Ridley."
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it's it's the
it's really
same.
bad.
It's the same problem, but Ridley works better.
Exactly. Because like his hitboxes don't. The problem with Mewtwo is that whenever he does anything, he's always swinging that tail.
Hmm.
So it's always a problem. You roll off the ledge. Like most characters go compact or like flip when they roll right from the
Yeah.
ledge. Mewtwo goes like a snake, and his tail is always active. So sometimes I would get hit even though I'm behind them, just because the tail hurtbox is still active all over there. It's like playing with ice climbers, having two characters, but they share the same body, you
Yeah.
know?
Definitely.
Mewtwo right now is the definition of like a glass cannon, but like without the cannon, only the glass.
But I mean, it's not bottom 10, right?
No, 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 he's definitely not. No, he's definitely not. Let's
No.
not get it twisted, right? He has decent neutral, he has a good punish game, he has good combos. That's all fine and dandy. But like he can't keep with the rest of the game.
Of
Like
course.
dealing with Mithra as a Mewtwo. Oh God, dear Lord, no, 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 no. I would rather switch immediately. I would just concede defeat. I wouldn't play against a Mithra, a good Mithra at least with
Yeah.
Mewtwo.
Of course. Well, as we talked about it before, you previously played with Peach more because you wanted a technical character, but why have you stopped playing with her in favor of Mithra, in favor of Aegis in
Um.
general? And what's your opinion of her in her current meta?
Okay. So, how do I explain this? I don't want to take too long. Okay.
You
So,
can take as long
I
as
play
you
a lot
want.
of
Don't worry.
characters. Thanks, dude. So, I play a lot of characters. I switch mains all the time.
Yeah.
It's not because I don't have faith in the character. It's because I've always been a discipline of like learning the game myself.
Hmm.
Back in Marvel, we didn't have like a super active community.
Yeah.
That's something I kind of skipped over, but I became the best in Marvel out of like, just by learning the game on my own,
Hmm.
just by going and training and picking every character and imagining scenarios. And I ended up winning against a lot of top players that came outside of region just because I had good fundamentals. I've played against people like Justin Wong, Xian, Mago, Tokido, and I won against all of them in Marvel. So back in the day, I would play every character, I would study every scenario just because I love I love studying the game.
Hmm.
So when Ultimate rolled out, I just told myself that I wouldn't play a glass cannon. I would play a character that can be consistent because I always regretted not playing Sheik in Smash 4.
All right.
Even though a lot of my friends told me that I should have picked her, but I was just stubborn. So in Ultimate comes out. Um, I started watching Peach guides. Daisy to be exact. I play Daisy, but like I always just say Peach just to get it out of the way.
All right.
So
Don't
I
worry.
started watching Peach guides, because I like Daisy as a character. So I picked Daisy, started doing combos. It was fine. It was fun. But then I wanted to learn Ultimate as Ultimate, and then I found out that Daisy or like Peach plays Ultimate.
All right.
You have low commitment options that have big rewards, and you had obnoxious hitboxes with Bear and Fair, right?
Hmm.
So I kind of got my dose of like technicality along with like top tier options. which was fun to me. And then when she got nerfed, I kind of got demotivated. I don't like nerfs in general. Whenever a game rolls out, I always think to myself that they shouldn't balance a game until the meta kind of solidifies, because you don't want to end up nerfing a character and then hurting them in the long run, like Pichu, right? When they nerfed Pichu, Pichu went from like top 3, top 5 into one of the worst characters in the game, just specifically because they over nerfed them,
Yeah.
you know? Even with the buffs, because Pichu got, like the game as a whole, we got shield buffs. They expanded
Yeah.
shields so as not to get shield poke. And then we got, what was it? I think Pichu got his nair buffed, and the damage parameters were like, lowered. They're not the way they used to be, but
Yeah.
but they're still lower, right? So you still see, people pick Pichu from time to time, but even then, it's like Pichu isn't the threat that they used to be,
Yeah, of course.
and that's always a problem to me. So what got nerfed with Peach was back throw and then fair. So I had problems killing, and that kind of made me sad. What's the use of doing like a long combo if I can't kill? So I told myself, okay, I'm super demotivated. Let me pick another character just in case they nerf her again, because she was still doing well at in tournaments at the time. So I decided to pick another character just to be safe, because you don't want to spend it, you don't want to spend time on a character like for a long time and then finding that they got super nerfed, and then you want to switch mains, but it's kind of too late, so you can't adapt. I didn't want to go through that, so I've played Palutena. Paulo was easy to pick up. I learned a lot playing the character. Super fun character to me. I will never understand people saying that basic characters like Lucina, Wolf, or Palutena are being lame. I don't understand that. To me, having solid options is always fun, because you get to play the way you want to play, and that's always amazing to me. So I started playing Paulo, and then I had a mini project on Wario, but I didn't want to invest too much in Wario, because one thing about Peach that I always disagreed with a lot of the community with is that when people used to say that Peach was the best, I would agree that she would be a contender for being one of the best, but being the solid best was kind of hard to believe in, because she had a lot of losing matchups. Thankfully, we have a lot of variety in the country. Even though it's the community is small, most of our players are masters of their characters, like let's say Ferris, right? So I started playing against Ferris. He would pick Zelda or Samus against me, and I would struggle. She can't get in. She's too slow. She's floaty, and turnips don't do much in neutral. So I started thinking to myself, maybe people are over exaggerating, right? Excuse me. Maybe Peach isn't as dominant as people believe her to be. So that was one of the reasons why I stopped playing her for some time. And then I had Palutena, which was super dominant. She basically deleted half the casts if they weren't like, high tier. She was everything I needed of a character, and I started investing more time in her. But then she got nerfed as well. So that's when I started focusing more on Wario. And then Wario got nerfed. So I thought to myself, okay, why am I bothering? Every character I picked got nerfed. Even if the nerfs weren't severe, it gets to you,
Yeah.
When you land that one hit that always killed, but right now it doesn't kill, it matters to you. It gets to you. So when Aegis rolled, just like every other DLC, whenever a new character comes out, I would stay playing that character for like a month or something. I would explore that character all the way, all the possibilities. During the first few days of me playing Aegis, I immediately told all of my friends that, okay, this is definitely the best character in the game, hands down. And people are gonna start saying stuff like, "Oh, Pyra is weak. You'll have to rely on Mithra, and then Mithra can't win trades, and she can't kill, so the character is not as good." But trust me, they are the future. All you need to do is just pick Pyra and just master using her down air. That's all you need to do. Everything else is autopilot and easy. You just need to master using the down air. Down air is busted. It's extremely big. The arc of the swing is way too high. The character has a lot of hurtbox shifting moves. You would see Spargo do forward air out of hit stun, right? Like let's say let's say against Shag, right? It wasn't against Shag. I believe it was against Proto. Proto did something like what was it, like down throw or something, and then wanted to follow up, like wanted to do a true follow up with up air or something, and then Spargo immediately did forward air, which pulls Pyra back and then hit Proto out of it. These kinds of things really matter in top level. Hurtbox shifting when it comes to like the meta of Smash is extremely important because you get to act out of stuff that people think is guaranteed. And then when you start swinging out, they start second guessing themselves. And that transitions into you messing up their game plan. And then eventually it would just take you a whole mile just because your character can do stuff that nobody else can do. So that's why I wanted to, to stay with Aegis, and that's why I stuck with them. They didn't get nerfed, thankfully.
I mean, they technically did, but it wasn't like a huge nerf.
Like the nerfs weren't relevant enough.
Exactly.
The nerfs Palutena got were definitely they definitely
yeah.
hit. That's 100% true. You know, the grab nerf, and then you had down throw nerf. First was down throw nerf, and then you had the grab nerf. Like those two things, and then you had the nerf to nair, because the hit stun on the first few hits got lessened, so as not so as to nerf the infinite. You know, you remember the infinite she had on like big bodies, right? And that worked well for the infinite, but what it kind of did is that tough guy kind of works sometimes. Sometimes they would randomly fall off, which is not a big deal because Nair is still busted. And that's my gripe with the balancing team. The way I would have nerfed Palutena is by making her back air a little bit laggier, so you could whiff punish that thing, lessening the invincibility on the move, having Nair not combo into itself 4 times. These kinds of things were supposed to. I think that's the way I would have approached nerfing the character because she doesn't exactly have a splendid ground game. Dash attack is extremely punishable, and the nerf was even worse. And then you had jab, which is like frame 8, which is I don't know. And then you had her grab got severely nerfed, which means that she has to always approach from the air, meaning that her linear game plan became even more linear. You know, this is not me saying that Palutena is weak by any means. She's still top tier. She's still busted. I'm just saying that as a Palutena player, it's not fun to me that she got nerfed in that way. I would have much rather they took away the invincibility completely out of back air instead of nerfing her grab range and her down throw.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be one or the other, not both of them.
Yeah. What's your opinion on Roy and Rob not getting nerfed?
I think okay. Whoever designed Rob, I hope that you have a pleasant life, but please, 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 I hope that you step on gum and it gets stuck to your shoes. I hate Rob. I hate Roy. They're they're the most. I wouldn't say that I'm not team that they're like super brain dead carrying characters.
Right.
I'm not gonna say that. All I'm gonna say is that they have some stuff that shouldn't be normal in a fighting game. You know, stuff that that's easy to put out on screen, that's kind of hard to deal with, which is the majority of the cast. But they get my problem with Roy and Rob is that they snowball way too fast, just because their tools allow it, not because a certain player is good at it. Some players are good, like at the top level. Shout outs to all of the top players, meaning both characters, no disrespect. And I'm not trying to throw shots at anybody, but like in mid level, even at like sometimes at low level, the Roy and Rob players would just throw out stuff, and you have to respect it because it's that good.
Yeah. Well, I think talking about Rob, and I'm gonna talk about another character in the future, not right now. But talking about Rob, what's your opinion on some players wanting to go more technical and some others wanting to go more, like for a more neutral gameplay and not wanting to integrate both?
Um, okay, so my opinion on Rob, jokes aside, the character is extremely solid.
Mm-hmm.
Super good. But also, there's also one thing that I think is that a lot of people aren't exactly capitalizing on the character's weaknesses. You know, their big size, they're really easy to combo. A lot of people don't know how to deal with, you know, the fuel and how to force Robs to run out of fuel off stage. These things will eventually develop, you know, as the game progresses, and then raw players will struggle with that. So having a good neutral game is really important in the long run, because the more you win neutral, the less you'll be in disadvantage, and then the better your defense is, the more you'll recover from said disadvantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, when it comes to technicality, the character has the potential to make you explode, you know, off of one gyro, or like, you know, one down tilt that trips. You could get, you know, a lot out of it. But then that's also, you know, a lot of the, you know, it's the same with the rest of the cast. You know, if Wolf gets optimized, you know, for example, Wolf could kill you in 3 hits. It's just fact. You know, the character does too much damage, super consistent, has a godlike neutral game. You know, so when it comes to a character, I think, you know, not just Rob, like any character, I think it's player dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Some players are good, you know, in the neutral game. Some of them are like, you know, super technical, and, you know, love landing that one big combo. So they should be working on optimizing that one hit. You'd be losing, you know, the stock, but when you get the hit, you wanna, you know, land your biggest combo, or like, you know, your heaviest punish possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say that a raw player should be dedicated to one or the other. I should say that I think, you know, playing Smash in general, or like fighting games in general, you should be focusing on, like, you know, upping your parameters in everything: your defense, your offense, your mind games, your mental, right? Because a lot of good players end up losing because they just lose faith, right? They just give up. And some players, you know, end up winning sets just because they didn't give up. So, you know, they forced their will on the other player, and they made them commit to something that got punished, or like, you know, making mistakes. Forcing habits of the other player, or like, you know, punishing other players' habits, is the most important part, in my opinion. And, you know, as a player, as a Rob, or like as a Roy, you should be focusing on what you could do best,
Mm-hmm.
more so than, you know, focusing on what the character can do best.
Of course. Wow. That's God, you give such go like answers, huh?
Thank you.
Do you think it's difficult to play NTO tournaments at the same time, or do you prefer just do one or the other?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It's to me, I have a certain standard for anything I do. You know, when I'm commentating, when I'm teaching, when I'm playing, when I'm TOing, all of that, right? I
Yeah.
have a standard. I don't want to be any less than a standard that I set. So when I'm TOing, it's extremely draining. I can't focus on the game. So if I end up losing because I couldn't focus, I feel sad. And then if I focus on the game, but then, you know, end up being too focused, so I get irritated, and sometimes, you know, reply harshly, or like, you know, not pay attention to some stuff that's happening during the event. I end up also feeling sad because my event wasn't run as smooth or like as good as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I just committed to something that I do, is that I never play NTO at the same time. Never do.
Right. Well, you mentioned that you also commented, right?
Yes.
But like commentating round one pools, or like commentating like in general.
Depends on the event. Depends on the event. Sometimes I commentate all the way. If it's a
Oh,
weekly, I'll commentate all the way.
okay.
Actually, it's 3 weeks ago I commentated our weekly all the way, starting
Wow.
round one until grand finals, and the VOD should be up in like probably later tonight, of like the event itself. Ferris was there if you want to check it out.
I don't know if you heard, but I was clapping. Um, but yeah, I think when now then I think about it, I will make a couple of questions more about commentator, or we can do it now and go with the rest of the podcast if you like.
Sure, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
down.
what do you think are the biggest factors in terms of commentating, and how can a commentator can get it on a deeper level and like get better at it?
Hmm. Okay, so when it comes to commentary, first and foremost, you have to commentate in a way that you appreciate. If you can't appreciate your own commentary, nobody's gonna like it. See, the thing is, whenever you speak for an audience, you only hear your sound while you're talking. You don't get the full picture. So recording yourself, or like seeing yourself, or like my bad, listening to yourself on commentary, or like like on stage, is way different than just doing it.
Yeah.
So it's the same way with playing. When you're playing, you're only focused on playing. You don't see your mistakes. You don't see what's happening. So going back and critiquing yourself is really important, on both sides of the spectrum. So you want to end up on doing it the way you appreciate it. So because eventually, in anything, whether it's playing or like commentating, you'll find haters. People love to hate on everything. They don't like seeing other people succeed, which is the sad reality, but it is, right? So when people critique your commentary, uh, how can you tell if the criticism is valid or not if you haven't critiqued yourself before?
Of course.
You'll get defensive. So if you practice while also reviewing yourself, you'll find that, oh, maybe I want to tone down on this, or like up on this, right? I want to speak in this manner. I want to listen the jokes. I want to speak more technical. Maybe I've spoken out of line here. Maybe I spoke over my co-commentator here. These kinds of things, they'll definitely refine your commentary and make it more enjoyable for yourself and the audience. And then the second thing, which is your style of commentary. Sometimes it doesn't click. Sometimes people aren't suited to be analytical. Some people need to only be hype. They could only just hype the they could just talk over what's happening and just try to hype it up, and they would end up doing it. Some people are gifted and can do both, right? They could
Yeah.
talk about technical stuff and make it hype. So it all comes down to what you prefer and what you can do. I don't think I obviously think that talent is a gift, and some people are more talented than others. But in everything in life, I'm a firm believer that hard work pays off. You should work hard towards it.
Definitely. How do you feel a good caster duo work with each other?
Sorry again.
How do you feel a good caster duo work with each other?
Um, my co-commentary, the guy I mostly commentate with is a TO from Saudi Arabia. He's the biggest TO there. Shoutouts to Zanza. Zanza is my co-commentator in most of our events,
All right.
and we have good chemistry with each other. So I genuinely think that having duos that complement each other is really important, because sometimes just like with players, sometimes it gets kind of like complicated. I wouldn't say personal. It never got with me, because I didn't cast big events outside of the region. But like, I would imagine it could probably happen. Sometimes when the chemistry isn't there, when the understanding isn't there, you need to talk it out with your co-host, so as to not overstep each other's boundaries, right?
Of course.
But when you have duos, people who are used to working together, even though sometimes it kind of gets stale, it's definitely a good thing. The only bad thing about it, which I advise any TO listening to this to do, is that other duos should get the shine, should get the spotlight, because the community easily would favor a certain duo over everybody else. Everybody else would be, in their eyes, bad just because they're not a duo or B duo.
Definitely. Well, this is an interesting question I had with certain players. Do you think people who commentate sets should get paid for commentating on tournaments, or do you feel it's something that is done with in good faith?
100% should be get paid. Anybody who is affiliated with anything that contributes to running the event should get paid. When you go to a restaurant, whatever you pay, the company pays the workers, pays security, pays everything. They pay for everything. Nothing is done out of good faith. Good faith doesn't put food on the table. It's
Definitely.
it's it's good to have that. It's good to have that, and it's fine to help other people. And if you can't, provide that for your scene, if you're a scene starting, from scratch and you don't have much money to go around, it's 100% fine. But whenever the money is available, you should be paying whoever is working on stage,
Right.
whether
Perfect.
it be bracket runners or commentators or players.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Well, going back to the podcast, both as a player and as a TO and as everything, how's the level of the community in Kuwait in comparison to other states or region in the Middle East?
Well, right now we're kind of behind, even though we were, as a community, we were, yeah, probably, I would say, arguably, the most active or like, the best at Smash 4.
Hmm.
But, those were days that are left behind because the scene wasn't active, super active, for a period of time during 2020, yeah, during late 2019 and the start of 2020, and then
Oh,
COVID hit and stuff happened. So the most active scenes in the Gulf region right now are Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
hmm.
Saudi Arabia being the most active because the country is the biggest. They have different coasts, being Riyadh and Jeddah, and then which is like it's essentially East Coast and West Coast, and they had rivalries. EMAS being from Jeddah, and you have top players in Riyadh like Tuki, Gogita, Zozef, Vi. They're like the top four, and arguably after EMAS left, the best four players in the region right now. So in Kuwait right now, our active players are from like the old players who are still active. We have Ferris, XFO, and then I believe Scorpion is making a comeback, and these are the only three of our top 10 who are still active. All
Hmm.
of the other guys quit. Zash, SSS, Madara, all of them quit. And we have up and newcomers who are extremely, showing promise and working really hard to become top players, who are Divine and Yusuf Tuat. One of our also one I should mention one of our rising players back in Smash 4 called Suud Samus. He's one of our most active players. Back in Smash 4, I believe he was what, like 15 or 14. Even as a kid, he would have wins on PR players. He wasn't like super consistent, but he definitely was one of the best.
Hmm.
And right now, he, whenever the new PR comes out, I think he's definitely making top five right now in Kuwait. So we have good active players, and they definitely have a shot against the other players in the region. But I'll be honest, I'm not sure if our performance will be as dominant as we used to be. Back in Smash 4, the Kuwaiti scene was super dominant. Like our biggest competition in the region was arguably Moom from
Moon.
Jeddah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you think the Middle East is an underrated region?
it definitely is. It definitely is 100%.
Okay. Awesome. Well, these are gonna be like really long questions, so bear with me.
No
Uh,
problem.
Back in Smash 4, Dubai Dojo 2 was probably one of the tournaments that technically put the Middle East on the map. Even if the top 8 were only Japanese players, how is the impact in such a large number of Japanese players to appear in this tournament?
It definitely was big, and it contributed hugely for the scene.
Hmm.
It's not just exposure points. Even having the chance to play against set players, having to the chance to talk to them. I think they had translators. I didn't attend the event personally,
Hmm.
but all of my friends went there. All of our PR players went there. They had a blast. And it wasn't the only event that actually had top player representation. In Kuwait, we had tons of events that featured people like Mr. R and V115, who goes by VZ, I think, right now from Canada.
Hmm.
And then in UAE, they had the event where all the Japanese players showed up, and they had events where MVD and Isam came through
Yeah, I remember that.
also.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that too.
So whenever we have events that feature abroad players, it's always a pleasure because we definitely it's definitely enjoyable to finally get to meet and talk to the players that we essentially watch for a large period of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Most of watching people behind the screen is not the same as having them in the same room. So it's all around exciting. It gives people morale to push through and try to get better at the game. Even if the losses are harsh, it's also a reminder that, oh, this is the goal, so I should be striving to get better.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, I honestly forgot about that tournament where MDD and Isam were on the Middle East. That now it brings back memories from Smash Four. I think the only, personally, I think the only good memories I had from Smash Four was as an out, like as a person from a different region that was watching tournaments just from the Middle East or from other South American countries or from the East like the East Asian countries or Oceania. So it was really awesome, and I think those were the only good memories I had from Smash Four, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Smash 4 was a lot of things, but yeah,
mm,
after all is said and done, I think it was a good time.
yeah,
After
definitely.
all is said and done, even though I didn't like a lot of things about the game, I didn't invest into the game as a player as I should have, but I still feel grateful that the game came around and essentially pushed the Smash scene to where it is now,
Of
actually.
course. Yeah, I believe that without Smash Four, we wouldn't have this conversation right now.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. I probably would have quit a long time ago.
Yeah, me too. I will be playing StarCraft right now.
Yeah.
Well, in 11 days, if I'm not mistaken, we'll be watching Virtual City Smash Open in Qatar, with Chag
Yes.
appearing in the scene. Do you think it
Yes.
will be a greater impact in comparison to Dubai Delta 2, taking into consideration that both tournaments were
Definitely.
promoted by VG Bootcamp?
Definitely. 100%. It's not just VG Bootcamp because the event I just talked about when I spoke about play against Zero Suit,
Mm-hmm.
that event was also streamed by VG Bootcamp,
Mm-hmm.
and that brought a lot of attention to the scene. It brought a lot of sponsors. It brought a lot of good opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the community is going through that phase where they kind of feel like the competition isn't stale. It's not stale, but like the competition is mostly between a few names that always bump into each other at the top level, right?
Yeah.
So having the chance to finally play against somebody that's as good as Chag is definitely something to look forward to, and I think everybody is motivated. Everybody I've spoken to is either going to that event or like super sad because they're gonna miss out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, I think it was probably, I think it was in the middle of 2019, late 2019. We had two events that featured players from Japan, whom were Leia, T, and who was it? We had somebody else. I could keep forgetting. But yeah, we had Japanese representation in these events,
Mm-hmm.
and these events definitely are memorable to most of our players. It's always a blast. It's always a blast, playing against outside competition.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's what we strive to do. Everybody wants to be the best, so
Yeah.
you want to try your hand at it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, tournaments aside, there has been this player from Saudi Arabia that has been demolishing some European players and proven that the effectiveness of a solo Joker in the current meta. But how strong of an impact do you think that EMAS made?
Definitely a strong impact, because first of all, and speaking of the local scene,
Hmm.
EMAS's success is nothing but fuel to motivate other players to do the same.
Yeah.
Because no matter how good he gets, they will always feel that at one point they were his rivals, maybe still is. At one point they were better than him, so they'll only think that, oh, we need to catch up now. That's, locally speaking. But when it comes to, to abroad, on, like, the bigger portion of the scene, I think that people needed to be reminded that Joker is still relevant to the metagame. Even if, like, MKLeo dropped Joker, people weren't exactly too keen on Joker before Leo, to be exact. So it's not about the character. It's mostly, Leo, putting Joker on the map, and then people, losing face just because, the reason Joker was put on the map got taken away. So I think it's healthy that EMAS kind of reminded people that, oh, hey, there's this character called Joker that's totally bonkers, and you could still play the character and do as well as I'm doing. And I'm gonna show you how to do it.
Definitely. Do you think EMAS will have a similar impact like Mr. R had? I mean, both being from the Middle East and have this presence in the Western scene.
Mm, th- to be completely honest, it's up to EMAS. I don't want to put any,
And
pressure
pressure,
on him,
of course.
but in my opinion, I definitely think that he could do it. Maybe not right away. Maybe it'll take some time, a few events, just to get his footing, in, like, U.S. events, if he ends up going there. Um, but from what he did achieve right now in Europe, I definitely think he has a good chance of, like, competing with the best. He definitely has.
Hmm.
He has all the potential. It's just up to him.
Yeah,
If he puts in the work, I 100% believe in him. He could definitely do it.
awesome. Well, we've been talking about how busted Pythra is, but there has been one character that has been really talked about since its appearance in Ultimate, but more nowadays after Glitch Infinite. What's
Yeah.
your opinion on Steve, and do you think he should be banned?
No. Definitely not. I would never. If people didn't ban pre-patch Bayo, they would never ban Steve. Let's be honest here. Okay? Okay? No matter how good you think Steve is, Steve at his best, at his most random points, will never be as broken as pre-patch Bayo. Let's get that straight. Okay? Bayo had two stocks. She had rage. She could kill you off of anything. Everything comboed into itself. She did lots of damage. She had a frame one air dodge. She had an out of everything. She could plank. In Smash 4, you didn't regain invincibility when you grab the ledge twice, but she could still plank because her up B was so big you couldn't even deal with it. And people were contemplating, banning Bayo planking at one point, but thankfully she got nerfed, so it went under the radar, but it was still there, right? And I know for a fact that if Smash 4 metagame kept on evolving, we would end up seeing tons of Bayos all over the place. So when you compare her to Steve, Steve is nothing. Steve is a good character. Okay, in my opinion, I think Steve is a really good character. 100% a contender to being top tier. Has flaws, but Steve's flaws aren't impactful enough for Steve to be irrelevant at any point.
All right.
Even if we talk about, Steve's tools having a limited times of use that, they could break eventually, I think with good strategy, with a good behind a good strategy, planning carefully, you could definitely utilize Steve's tools to their fullest. When Steve's goes in, he's going in. It doesn't matter that they're slow. It doesn't matter because they could just build a wall and make the stage smaller, and then you have to get across that wall, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, party time with up tilt and stuff.
Well, I think the other question regarding that, do you enjoy playing against Steve or watching Steve?
I do enjoy playing against Steve and watching Steve
Me too.
because I've played against Steve so much that I understand what's going on. I think the biggest problem with a lot of characters in Smash, I think the primary target of, this kind of discussion is Shotos, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I dislike playing against Shotos. Auto turnaround is just toxic," right? Or like playing against, let's say, Rob or Roy, even Sonic to a certain degree. A lot of people just complain because they didn't play the matchup enough. and they don't know what's going on. They just hate it. And speaking of characters that people dislike, Sonic, I genuinely think that Sonic was the character that needed revamping the most.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how they didn't change his moveset coming into Smash Ultimate, because all of his movesets, what he has like 5 or 6 moves that turn him into a sphere, and that is, of course, visually misleading, and then it's not entertaining for the spectator. So I definitely thought that they would change his moveset,
Yeah.
but they didn't, and it ended up being what it is today. Whenever people see Sonic on screen or like Olimar, they would just turn off the stream. But when it comes to Steve, I genuinely think that the character doesn't have too many complicated options. It's either like an attack, or like just running away and camping. It's not super complicated. But when they play against Steve, when they don't know how to deal with minecart, when they don't know how to deal with jab on shield, spamming jab or like spamming up tilt,
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand that eventually it'll get stale because they're doing it so much. And when it gets stale, you could immediately act out of shield, grab them, do whatever out of shield option you want to do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it honestly it was really interesting that you mentioned shadows because here in South America, like probably 3 players from the top 15 are shadow mains, and
Yeah,
I believe that 2 players of that top 5 are shadow mains. So it was really gut wrenching when he got buffed twice and never got nerfed.
yeah, yeah.
God damn it! How they could think that for
The
like the
balance
smash
team
attack,
of
the
Smash Ultimate
smash
is
attacks
just
into special, that was just
it's weird. I don't know. I have no clue how, like, what are they even thinking? How did K. Rule get nerfed? But like Roy and never mind Roy. Rob is there. Rob,
or
bro.
Pikachu.
Pac-Man is there. Pikachu. Oh God, don't let me get started on Pikachu, bro. Pikachu is just. It's not even that Pikachu is a problem. Pikachu isn't, in my opinion, I don't think that Pikachu, is as big as a problem that people make him to be. It's just that fighting Pikachu is annoying because you fight against Pikachu's existence. You're not just fighting against Jolt. You're fighting against a character that pancakes off of everything.
Yeah,
It's just super small, super hard to hit. Why is that even in the game? I don't even
yeah,
know. It's not even the killing options, it's just their existence.
yeah. I mean, if we're talking about existence, like annoyance of existence of a character, Pikachu is not the main problem. I think Yoshi is the main problem, personally.
Yoshi is also yeah, Yoshi is also problematic.
I hate
But
that
like
character.
Yoshi isn't like as good of a character as Pikachu. It's
No,
more like
definitely.
Yoshi's gimmicks are annoying,
Yeah,
and you could definitely 100% contest with Yoshi's hitboxes and the stuff that he does. Even if he gets the occasional lean back with F smash or like his double jump out of hit stun or whatever. But like fighting against Pikachu, my younger brother is a Pikachu main through all of the Smash games he ever played, right? And he's extremely technical with the character. So I've played against every iteration of Pikachu in every Smash game at the best level possible available to me. Okay? I can 100% say that this game's Pikachu is probably the most annoying to deal with out of any Pikachu I've ever fought. Primarily because quick attack isn't what it used to be. I remember back in all of the other Smash games, whenever I felt that Pikachu would quick attack, I would throw out a hitbox, I would stick out a limb, and I would hit Pikachu before Pikachu reached me. But like in this game, it would either Pikachu's quick attack would either beat my hitbox completely or and go through me, or like just whiff. It wouldn't hit them. It's weird. And that's like my biggest gripe with Pika, which is quick attack.
yeah,
It's extremely broken. I don't know why they did that.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I like Pikachu. Pikachu got buffed a lot from game to game.
Yeah.
Mostly from Brawl to Smash 4 and Smash 4 to Ultimate. Because he got
From Smash 4 to Ultimate was the biggest in my opinion because of the killing aerials.
yeah,
Having aerials that kill was was like the only thing that he needed in his kit.
Definitely. God damn it, that freaking backer. But fortunately, I main Lucas, and I previously main Ness, so it wasn't like, I mean, I still lost to Pikachu because one of the big best Pikachu mains in Latin America is the top three in Argentina.
Mm.
So I unfortunately had to deal with Pikachu, but any other players I didn't have an issue. But Pikachu is really busted uh, and it's a huge threat. But I think the problem with Pikachu that it doesn't have other characters like Steve or Pythra or Sonic or Yoshi that are annoying per se is that Pikachu is not that common. You don't see that.
Yes.
I think the
Yes,
problem
you don't see
with
Pikachu that much. Yeah.
I think the problem with players that have to play with Pikachu is that they don't know what to do. It's like basically playing against Mewtwo
Mm.
first. You don't know
Yeah.
what they have to do, or Duck Hunt. Who plays with Duck Hunt? Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because if you play with a character that's not common, you'll have people who don't know the matchup. You'll run into people who don't know the matchup a lot, but at the same time, because the character isn't common enough, you won't have people to study and learn from. A lot of people try to imitate Esam, but they don't understand that Esam plays with fundamentals that he built throughout the years,
yeah,
playing from Brawl. So when they try to mimic that, they end up, being too obvious or like not knowing why Esam does what he does in these situations and why it works.
yeah,
So then, they just end up losing.
yeah. um, do you feel happy about how Ultimate ended, or will you have liked something or someone else added?
No, I'm so sad that support ended before they ended up fixing the buffering system. They didn't give us a toggle for auto short hop. Please let me turn that off, please. All I wanted was just to have a toggle that would say turn off auto short hop. That's all I wanted. Along with the fixing the buffering system because it's lenient at times and weird at other times. One thing I always wanted to talk about this, so this is a good chance to speak about this. We have a good Kazuya player called Sahem, all right?
Right.
So Sahem plays against me all the time, and whenever he lands the command throw, the one where Kazuya, it's like a back throw, but like a special throw, where
Yeah.
Kazuya like kicks you, and then you go like in an angle that's like super bad for spaces.
Yeah.
You know that angle? It's like
Yeah.
this. It's like the angle of
Yeah,
Lucas's
yeah.
F
He
tilt.
he he
Yeah,
like he throws it in an angle that is go downwards, and it's horrible for
exactly,
characters that doesn't know how to recover properly, unless
exactly.
you're
So as
ranked.
a unless you're a character with a good
Yeah, unless you're a good
recovery
recovery. Yeah, yeah,
period,
yes.
right? So one countermeasure I wanted to do against that grab, especially if I'm grabbed, in the middle of the stage, or like if I could just DI down, I wanted to hold down and then tech on stage because if you hold down when when they throw, like let's say you're on stage and then you're over here and then they throw you, you could tech before you get launched off stage, right?
Yeah,
So sometimes, because the hit stun is so high, I would tech and I would still have momentum that would push me out of stage, but it should be less. And it definitely happens. I have less momentum. The problem is that the game buffers an air dodge for me, even though I pressed shield or R once. It's super weird. Why does that happen? I got the tech animation. Why am I still air dodging? That in of itself just screams to me that the buffering system is not polished in this game. A lot of stuff is really weird when it comes to Ultimate for no reason. This is the fifth installment. We had 64, Melee, Brawl, Smash 4, and then Ultimate. Why does the C stick stop working if I flick it? Why sometimes you would do an F tilt on the right side and it would come on the left. And I'm not the only one that this happens to. I've spoken with a lot of people that have the same issues. And support for the game stopped before we got any of that. We still have auto short hop done, when you're doing, we still struggle to do rising aerials. We
Hmm.
still have trouble with buffering, and then you have the what was it? The C stick problem. All of this stuff is just, it's all I wanted out of the game. The balance is great. I don't have any issues with Ultimate. There are some dump characters, which is fine. Every game has them. I definitely wanted them to nerf Sonic before the game's lifespan ended. All I wanted was they could buff Sonic all they want. They could give Sonic heavier weight. They could give Sonic a better combo game. All I wanted for them was to take the invincibility out of Spin Dash completely.
Yes.
I genuinely think it's a toxic move. It's not good at all for spectator.
No, at all.
And in the long run, if Sonic ends up being super relevant in the meta, people will start calling for like bans or implementation of specific rulings that countermeasure camping with Sonic.
Yeah.
Even though it's a valid strategy, and this is no shots at anybody who plays Sonic. I just genuinely think that when it comes to competition, when looking at the bigger picture, if you want to get sponsored, if you want to fly out to events, if you want to grow out your presence in social media to get better followings, meaning more money, you can't be a player using a character that's hated, because you'll generate a lot of hate that would hinder your progress in the long run. So, if they had buffed Sonic in a way that would made it possible to play the character without having to rely on camping, that would have been the best for everybody, would it not? I mean, it's fine if they can, but like not for 7 minutes every game, right?
Yeah. Now, now that I think about it, buffing Sonic was a really good, would have been a really good move. I mean, now that I think about it, they could still technically do it if they start updating the game with the amiibo functionality. I mean, they did it in Smash 4, if I'm not mistaken. Who
I have
knows?
no idea
But
if they want to do it. I'm not sure, but
I
like,
don't think they do it.
I wish they
But
do. I
I
hope they
wish.
do. I really wanted them to change the animations, because even if you're fine with camping, let's say if you're fine with camping and you don't mind having Sonic on screen, it's still annoying as a player to hear wee wee. The sound of the spin dash is so annoying. It gets to your head, and he doesn't need to have like half of his moveset being the sphere, because Sonic has a fighting game. He has tons of fighting games. He has Sonic Fighters, and then Sonic Battle, and then something else I probably forgotten, maybe the RPG one, Dark Resurrection or something it was called, right? They could just take moves out of those games and then put them instead of like the other moves that they had. Sonic did you know that Sonic has a projectile? I don't think anybody knows. It's definitely scary to have a fast, super fast character with a projectile, and that's not the aim. I don't want them to break the character. I only want them to change Sonic to be a more presentable character. That's all I wanted.
Hmm. All right. Well, this is gonna be a pretty. I mean, you already kind of responded to the second question, but do you think there's gonna be a next Smash game, or ultimately is too quote perfect end quote to have a sequel, or at
Mhm.
least so early?
Okay, so I've had this conversation multiple times, and I definitely don't have a solid answer. I could probably change my answer with time. But what I'm feeling right now is that the way Nintendo is handling the Switch is probably how Nintendo handled the 3DS. So
Oh,
they had the DS, and then I'm sorry, the DS. So they had the DS, and then they had the
DSi.
DSi, and then the something else, and then you had the DS XL, and then you had the 3DS, and then the 3DS XL, and then the 2DS. So the Switch is 100% getting the same treatment. We
Yeah.
had the Switch, and then the Switch Lite, now the OLED, and I'm pretty sure they have something in the works, because the Switch is a successful console. So there's no reason from a business standpoint for them to, you know, try to introduce a new console when they have all of this available on the Switch and it's still selling like hotcakes, right? Smash only we only get one Smash per console.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're getting anything new at least until like 2025 or something, right? But even then, even if we get a new game, I don't think it'll be as big as Ultimate.
Of course.
Having the same models, because a lot of Smash Four completely transitioned into Ultimate the way it is. They didn't change anything. You know, the animations, the models, music, stages, a lot of it was already done. They
Hmm.
just expanded on it. So if they want to introduce, let's say Smash Six, I think it's going to be a reboot. To be honest,
Interesting.
yeah, I don't think they'll come back, with the same game. I don't think Sakurai has it in him.
I don't know if Sakurai will be even in the picture.
He's probably going to be in the picture. At least Sakurai will always be part of Smash, at least as a supervisor.
Yeah,
Even if he doesn't work directly, he'll definitely have a say in something.
right. Honestly, I think that the next Smash game, quote, will be happening in 2027 probably, because 2025 seems at least too close, because I think there's gonna be like 3 or 4 more years in the Switch lifespan, at least
Yeah, of
like.
course, of course. I primarily said 2025 just like as the closest number possible. It
Yeah,
could
of
probably
course.
never happen. Maybe in 2027, maybe even 2030, right? For all we know. But
Yeah,
like as you said, the Switch still has a lot of life in its lifespan.
definitely. And I think there's not gonna be like a new Smash game, but I personally believe that they're gonna announce sooner or later Melee HD.
Mm.
At least for 2024, because
I hope they do. But like if there's one thing I'm worried about is that that they started playing Melee with mods, right?
yeah,
UCF. I hope it's compatible. I hope they find a way to make it compatible because the base game as Melee, it's fun, it's cool because it grew with the community.
yeah,
Melee is a gem. It will always be relevant in my opinion. It's a cult classic that will stay with us forever, just like Street Fighter 2 is.
hmm,
So I genuinely wish that Nintendo embraces this side of the community at least. I hope they do.
yeah, I hope so too.
They have to get people involved. Melee is too important to the community to just be on the side. I don't want to see Nintendo doing something shady like, oh, we have Melee HD, so if you play Melee on something emulated, you're gonna get banned on Twitch or something. I hope they don't
Hmm.
do something shady like that.
I hope so. I hope not.
And I don't think people will stay silent. People will raise hell if Nintendo starts fighting, the community that way. I hope they just embrace it, just get people involved within the community to give Melee rollback. It doesn't have to be all the mods that the skins and all of this. It should be the base game along with the stuff that the community wants, UCF and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. What was your opinion on Wi-Fi events during the pandemic?
I love them. Not gonna lie, it was probably hell for the players, and I completely understand that. As a player, it's it's hard to play on Smash Ultimate's netcode. It's
Yeah.
hard, but it was really entertaining. We got to see a lot of players flourish as content creators, which the scene definitely needs. Smash Ultimate, Smash 4, Smash Ultimate, this part of the community
Hmm.
is definitely behind compared to other communities with content creation. So we needed people to, sit in their offices, houses, or whatever, and start making content. Start, doing challenges, interacting with their audience and stuff. I genuinely think it was really healthy for the scene. But
Hmm.
but as far as competition goes, um, um, I genuinely think that the results should be taken with a grain of salt,
Of course.
because online results do matter in my opinion. They count, but it's not always the case because lag and delay is a real issue, right?
Yeah.
So what I think is that it should be taken for the positives and then the negatives should be swept aside. You know, I think they should still continue.
Hmm.
People should still, compete online and host online events.
Yeah.
Um, And yeah, I genuinely think that online warriors deserve the recognition, and they showed Spargo's growth. People like Jake. Who was it? We had a lot of online players who became literal goats
Sonics.
after the pandemic. Sonics. Oh, dude! I speaking of Sonic, Sonics is my favorite Sonic player. The guy doesn't deserve half the stuff he gets when he's playing. Even when he's camping, it's cool. I kid you not. It's amazing. It's amazing. Because he knows when to go in. It's not like, him just running away for the sake of running away. He genuinely, tries to keep his lead
Hmm.
in a smart manner. I don't think he does it maliciously, like people say.
Right. Then I think other players. I have the latest Wi-Fi war ranking. There's Spargo, Sonics, Send,
Sand.
Yes with Ike.
Yes.
I'm talking about people that were like really important in the Wi-Fi era that
Era.
are as important in the current era. Um,
Exactly.
Skills, Capitancito, Chag, Siski, Siski, yeah.
Yeah.
Naito Sharp, Kirby Kid, who else? Oh, Bloom for Eva, Bruno, Sky J,
These are a lot of good players and a lot of big names. And the
yeah,
thing is, uh, I mean, people love to hate on Smash Ultimate when it comes to anything. They hate on the
yeah,
balance, they hate on characters, they hate on matchups, they hate on players. But to be honest, Smash Ultimate is an amazing game. It
definitely.
just is. When you shove the salt aside and start thinking that okay, I want to make money off of this game. Can I do it? It's 100% possible. You could just get like a highlight reel of your replays, stick some music to it, put it on YouTube, get that stuff monetized, and it's instant money. You could make a guide and it would explode. And a lot of guides on Smash are done poorly. A lot of top players would make guides on their characters and then start saying stuff like, oh, this is double jump. This is C stick. This is back air. This is the secret tech, huh? Back air. Bro, I'm not watching your guide so you could tell me what's obvious. Bro, tell me how to win with the character. Explain matchups. Tell me why I would use this back air. What's it useful for? And even then, it would get views and it would get all of the love in the world. And that's what I want people to embrace. I want them to embrace that. Even though ultimate netcode is bad, it's 100% bad. We should embrace that it's what we have and it works. It gets the job done.
Hmm.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the biggest greatness with the pandemic has been obviously that content creation for many players have been skyrocketing. Even players that were like even from players that were like thinking of content creation as a side thing, now are like doing it as a main thing. Like for example, Hungerbox.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact,
HBox exploded,
yeah. As a matter of fact,
and
I
he's
have
and he's actually a pioneer.
yeah. As a matter of fact, I have been following HBox for since 2015, 2016, and I have a tattoo of the HBox logo.
Yeah, I've seen the picture. I was about to
Oh,
bring that up. I've seen the tattoo. That's awesome.
thanks. But also for people that have been known for the for streaming are now like huge because of the pandemic. One person I want to mention is from the South American community, Tiso, have been making huge tournaments for the South American scene. Mainly Tiso Star Madness that was just crews based on characters, and it was like 78 crews. It was before Steve
Wow, that's
was.
amazing.
Yeah, I having in the size for five crews that didn't make that weren't gonna make the cut, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna grab these crews myself, and I was gonna make them. It was it was a thing that happened. Obviously Rob won, but
You have a thing for Rob, huh?
yeah, it was amazing because there was it's ironic because I think it was round two and it was Rob versus Mewtwo,
Oh God.
and
Oh God.
this one player took nine
Yeah.
stocks, or I think ten, I
Oh.
don't know, 9 or 10.
Good
It's
on
on
them,
Mewtwo.
and congratulations. But my Mewtwo brothers and sisters, I'm sorry. This is hard.
Yeah, it quite was.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine.
There was something worse though because the pulls were randomized, so there were some things that happened like and it was single bracket. So there was this meme of first round Pikachu versus Ganondorf.
Oh my God, bro, that's brutal.
It was.
Ganondorf is low tier even in real life. What is going on? The dude can't even get blessed with seeding. But
It was
you wouldn't catch me playing Ganondorf. I'm a tierless guy, I would say. I'm always against picking low tiers. Always pick top tier, boys. Always pick the top tiers. Don't pick low tiers. Don't go for that life.
Well, we've been talking about Smash and being a TO for quite a while now. I'd like to talk with Khalid a little bit. So tell me, what do you like to do aside of fighting games?
Aside of fighting games, I'm big on gaming in general. I
Hmm.
play a lot of JRPGs specifically and platformers.
Right.
I'm also a completionist, so whenever I play a game, it's always 100% with me. In recent years, I'm not as active as I used to be. I don't play as many games as I'd love to.
Hmm.
But the pandemic gave me the space and leisure of going back to my roots. Um, Last year, I've beaten around 100 something games. Some of them being games that I've postponed playing for a long time, even though they are games that I genuinely wanted to play. And then aside of gaming, I love playing, lots of sports. I play soccer, our soccer, not
Yeah, and it's
uh,
football.
yeah, yeah, football.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then I also play volleyball. I play tennis, paddle. Uh, I'm not exactly, a sports guy, but I'm definitely active. I love playing.
Right.
I love competition in all sides of life. And then, for me personally, I'm the eldest of my brothers and sisters, so I have lots of responsibility, family responsibilities to take
Of
care
course.
of. Um, I'm also a petroleum engineer, so my job is kind of a headache.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't get all the free time I want, but it definitely pays well. So I'm grateful for that. It puts food on the tables, and that's something I'm always grateful for.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Even though I'm a head TO, I'm super active on social media, and I have a lot of connections. I'm actually an introvert. I force myself to be around people, but
Right.
it's not something that I hate. It's something that I like, but my social battery sometimes runs out, and then I go back into my cave.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
can
that's
definitely
about
relate.
that.
I can definitely
Yeah,
relate to
that's
that.
about that.
Well, how has the pandemic affected you outside of the FGC community and gaming community in general?
Even though the pandemic probably hit a lot of people and messed up a lot of people's lives, me personally, it was a big chance because as I told you before, in Kuwait, or like in our culture, being social is really, really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
So having that space and time for myself definitely changed a lot of things. I lost a lot of weight during the pandemic. I've gone back to playing a lot of video games that I postponed. I've worked on my mental health quite a lot. And all over, like all around, I definitely took the time to take care of myself. So even though the pandemic was stressful,
Yeah.
it wasn't fun, uh, and I don't think of that time fondly. When I think of the pandemic, but when I think of what I accomplished during that time, to me, it's definitely been a good opportunity for me.
Definitely. Awesome. Awesome to hear that.
Thank you.
Now with some random lightning round questions for the podcast. Not some are memes, some are related to Smash. It's not you don't have to necessarily
Okay.
like say it like faster. You can extend yourself as you want. But so RKB,
Yes.
are you ready?
Ready.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I think I'm sure.
Okay, cool. So what's the worst alt of Aegis?
Worst alt of Aegis is the color where they swap colors.
Yeah.
Where Mithra becomes Pyra and Pyra becomes Mithra. I hate that alt. It's misleading.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the best Pythra mains in Argentina used that out for that specific reason.
Yeah. The same with Mr. Game and Watch players. I see you, who pick the white color so you don't see their air dodge. You don't see the unvolt frames. I hate it.
Or snake mains that use the uh, black alt so that grenades and they selves
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that
don't be
too.
appearing in Lilat. Yeah, I see
Yep,
you.
yep, yep.
Uh,
Yeah. It's a tactic. It's a legit tactic, but I'm allowed to hate it.
do you think that Daisy is just Peach with better alts?
I would say Daisy is just Peach, but with a personality.
Oh,
Peach doesn't have a personality. I'm sorry, Peach lovers. She's cool. Peach is cool, but Daisy is where it's at. She has the persona. That's what I
alright,
want.
awesome. Do you have any anecdotes or any situation that happened at a tournament that you were hosting?
Hmm. No, nothing comes to mind.
Okay. What has been the most disappointing fighting game you ever played?
The most disappointing fighting game I've ever played,
Yeah.
like the most underwhelming one.
I think the ones that the one that you were expecting the most, like anticipating the most, but end up being disappointing or boring.
Oh, like the biggest disappointment?
Yeah.
Bro, nothing will ever top Nickelodeon All Stars. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How is a SpongeBob game, is allowed to not have voice acting? SpongeBob is mute? What? I wanted to hear that. What is this? The game is so unpolished. It's fine. Like the gameplay is fine. The game to playing the game is it's fine. It's fine. But like I was expecting so much more, and then it ended up being,
A
eh,
PlayStation
you
All
know.
Star ripoff.
At least, yeah, exactly. But at least PlayStation All Stars had its own personality with the supers and stuff, and the presentation of the game was good at the time.
Yeah.
Dante, even though it is with Dante, but it was still Dante. And then you had Kratos. Kratos, I love Kratos. Kratos, my love. And then we had, who was it? Who else? We had good characters. Parappa the Rappa. I loved PlayStation All Stars. Wasn't like super on it competitively, but like the competition, during those gatherings with friends that get a little bit heated and you know.
Uh, Honestly, I thought you were gonna say either Jump Force or the latest Marvel vs. Capcom, but yeah,
I
Nickelodeon.
actually love Marvel Infinite. Don't get it
Oh,
twisted. I love Marvel Infinite. If you go through my Twitter account, I have like tons and tons of tech videos on everything. I should probably compile it into some form of like long video on YouTube someday because I don't want it to be lost in time. But I was super into Marvel Infinite. I think it fixed a lot of the issues Marvel 3 had. The problem with Marvel Infinite is that the presentation was trash, which was okay in my book because I wanted the Marvel game to play. And it had rollback, so I could play with other people, so that was fine for me. And then what was the other game you mentioned?
Jump Force.
Jump Force. For When it comes to Jump Force was underwhelming. Like it was bad, but like it didn't come to mind because I didn't even bother to purchase the game. Like I wasn't excited for it because when they announced the game and I saw the modeling, all it felt to me was that they wanted to have real life figures move in the game. It looked super realistic for no reason. That's why
Right.
I didn't like it. So I didn't bother buying the game. So when it ended up, flopping, I just didn't care. But Nickelodeon All Stars, I was looking forward to it.
Right. So, ¿sabes hablar español?
What?
¿Sabes hablar español? O en español?
Sorry, I'm lost. What?
Do you know how to speak in Spanish?
I don't.
Okay.
Sadly, I really want to. I want to visit Latin America as soon as possible because I just love the atmosphere. I want to go to Brazil. I want to go to Argentina. I want to go to Puerto Rico. I want to go to I want to go all over the place. I want to travel all over the place, but I don't know how to speak, and I definitely want to learn.
Alright. What's your favorite video game of all time outside of Smash?
Outside of Smash, my favorite
Or
video game
outside
of
of
all time.
fighting games, now that I think about it.
This is really hard because I have a lot of games that I like, and
Right.
I'm always getting asked this question, but I don't have a solid answer.
You
So
can say a top 5 if you want, or a top 3.
I'll say a favorite franchise. Is that
Alright, cool.
okay?
Yeah, sure.
Mega Man.
So you
Mega
were.
Man X to be specific. Thank you.
Sorry?
Mega Man X to be specific.
Alright, cool. So I think you were really disappointed with Mighty Number 9, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, don't get me started, dude. I was one of the I was one of the biggest backers of that game. Do you know how much I donated to that game? I raised 10K for that game.
No!
Bro, I want to cry. I was a high schooler. I went begging my whole family and my friends and their families. Oh God, oh God. I raised so much for that game, only for my copy to be lost. I didn't get my copy till today,
No!
I purchased it. The handling of that game's Kickstarter was so bad that they didn't email me my code for for the copy of the game till today.
Shit, I'm so
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
sad.
sorry I break
It's
that I broke that
sad.
up.
It's sad. Yeah. I
So
want to
sorry.
cry.
I'm so sorry. Well, at least you got Mega Man
Yeah.
11. No.
After I betrayed Capcom, Capcom was like, come. But
So
yeah, it is what it is.
it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
lastly, which player or member of the community would like to see in this type of interview?
Like somebody I want to interview?
No, like me interview them.
I want you to interview them.
Yeah.
That's cool. I would probably want somebody who doesn't get to talk often, or like somebody who I don't know much about. That's a good question. You know what? Actually, if you could get to interview Chag, I would really appreciate it because
I
um,
already interviewed
I
Chad.
don't think that I don't think Chag was like super comfortable talking on the mic during Summit. So we know Chag the player, but we don't know Chag the person. You know
Actually, I already interviewed Chag during the pandemic.
I'm sad that I missed out on that.
Okay. So, do you have any other option?
Um, Come again?
Do you have any other selection, other
Oh
player?
yeah, another selection.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is if I would say it wouldn't be somebody like from the general community, like from the NA community.
Okay.
I would love it if you like interviewed somebody who's under the radar. Like let's say if it's from our region, Somebody we have some players who would probably put on a good show, when interviewing because their personalities are like cool and stuff. You could get somebody like, let's say, Faris or Gogita. Gogita from Riyadh would be a good choice. Imas, I'm not sure would agree to get interviewed, but like if I would pick, it would probably be one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I would go as far as saying, somebody from Europe, somebody like Bloom. Bloom is a good pick.
All right, awesome. Well, here's where the podcast is coming to an end. Thank you so much to RKB. If the public wants to look up for your social media, where they could find you.
It's always RKB Kuwait. You could find me on almost anywhere. I'm mostly active on Twitter. That's where like I'm most active, about Smash and gaming in general. I stream occasionally on Twitch, and whenever I'm TOing an event, it's either on my main channel, which is RKB Kuwait, or you could find it on AXG, which is the team I run for TOing all of our events, which is Abraj X Gaming. I'm probably gonna have it in my bio or something for people who are interested.
Okay. Well, don't
But
forget
yeah,
to
thanks for having me.
right. To the people who are watching, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you cannot miss the chance of watching another podcast or any future content available. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the podcast, and with this, we say goodbye. Live long and prosper. Bye. Now we
Bye
can
bye.
just